All right, welcome. Today's explainer breaks down a fascinating source text on the true underlying drivers of wealth. If you've ever found yourself wondering why some people just effortlessly build these massive fortunes while others constantly struggle, well, you are absolutely in the right place. We're going to decode the psychology behind our money today. And to kick things off, we're going to look at a contrast that is so shocking it might just rewrite literally everything you thought you knew about financial success.
So picture this. Over on one side of town, you've got Ronald Reed. Ronald spent his entire life working really simple jobs. He was a gas station attendant and a street sweeper. He lived this super quiet life, didn't have any formal financial education whatsoever, and honestly, to anyone looking from the outside, he was just a regular guy barely scraping by. Now, on the exact opposite end of the spectrum, we have Richard Fuscone. This guy had it all. He was an elite Harvard graduate, a brilliant executive at one of the world's absolute largest investment banks. Just the total epitome of sharp intelligence and rapid financial success. Two completely different men, right? Well, fast forward to the end of their lives and brace yourself because how their stories actually conclude is wild.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the incredible twist at the end. When Ronald, our humble street sweeper, passed away, the world was completely stunned to discover that he'd quietly amassed an $8 million fortune, and he actually left most of it to charity. I mean, how on earth did he pull that off? There was no secret lottery win, no massive inheritance. Nope. He simply saved what little he could, invested consistently in blue-chip stocks, and then he just patiently waited for decades to let compound interest do the heavy lifting for him.
But hold on, because during that exact same time period, our brilliant financial executive Richard faced a completely different reality. He declared total bankruptcy. Under the weight of this crushing, insurmountable debt, he was quite literally forced to sell off his entire estate. It's just an unbelievable juxtaposition. I mean, how does an untrained, everyday janitor completely outmaneuver an elite financial mastermind? That right there is the exact paradox we're unpacking today.
Okay, let's dive into this. To truly understand this paradox, we're going to break down 4 key pillars from our source text. First, behavior beats financial knowledge. Second, why no one is crazy. Third, the roles of luck and risk. And finally, the trap of never enough.
All right, let's hit pillar number 1. Behavior beats financial knowledge. We're going to look at why raw intelligence really isn't everything.
Think about the hard sciences for a second. If you look at fields like medicine or structural engineering, a highly trained specialist is always going to outperform a layman. Look, if you need open heart surgery, you absolutely want someone with a medical degree, right? You wouldn't trust a random guy off the street. But finance is this entirely different beast. In the financial world, a non-expert who just happens to possess incredible self-control and patience can absolutely defeat a reckless expert. It's actually one of the only fields in the whole world where an everyday person without a fancy degree has a very real statistical shot at winning big.
And this brings us right to the core thesis of Morgan Housel's writings on the psychology of money. He says financial success is not a hard science, but a soft skill, where your behavior and how you act are far more important than what you know. This is a total game changer. It fundamentally flips our understanding of wealth. It tells us that building a fortune isn't about memorizing complex spreadsheets, it's not about having insider knowledge, and it's definitely not about perfectly timing the stock market. It's almost entirely about mastering your own behavior.
Moving right along to section 2, why no one is crazy. This is all about the lens of lived experience.
Listen, have you ever watched someone drop half their paycheck on lottery tickets? Or maybe you've seen someone absolutely refuse to put a single dollar into the stock market because they're terrified of it, and you just thought to yourself, wow, they are totally crazy. Well, the source text pushes back really hard on that assumption. Think about it. If you were raised during a brutal time of high inflation and crushing poverty, your entire internal worldview of risk and opportunity is fundamentally different than someone who grew up during an era of booming economic prosperity. What seems completely irrational to you might actually make perfect logical sense to them, simply based on their lived reality.
So the crucial point is this. We make decisions based on our personal stories, not spreadsheets. The truth of the matter is, none of us are truly crazy. We are all just reading the world through completely different lenses, basically trying to navigate our own unique financial environments using whatever mental tools we picked up growing up.
Okay, let's look at section 3. The roles of luck and risk, those massive forces entirely beyond our control.
And this brilliantly illustrates how fragile success really is. We all know Bill Gates, right? A true genius, incredibly hardworking, for sure. But our text points out a massive hidden element of luck in his story. Gates just so happened to attend one of the only high schools in the entire world that actually had a computer in 1968. I mean, that is an astronomical stroke of luck. But on the flip side of that coin, we have his best friend, Kent Evans. By all accounts, Kent shared the exact same genius, the same drive, and the same ambition as Gates. But tragically, Kent died in a mountaineering accident before he even graduated high school. That is the ultimate heartbreaking realization of risk. Here we have two brilliant minds facing massive forces entirely outside of their control, with completely different outcomes.
The lesson here is incredibly humbling. Individual effort just isn't the whole story. Whenever you see massive success out there in the world, remember that luck played a silent, hidden role right alongside all that hard work. And when you see failure, realize that risk is just a natural part of the game. It's not undeniable proof of someone's stupidity. The text advises us to stop focusing so much on those extreme outliers, like the billionaires of the world, and instead we need to look for broad, general patterns of behavior that we can actually replicate in our own lives.
Which brings us to our fourth and final pillar, the trap of never enough. Frankly, this is the most dangerous financial game you can play.
I want you to break the fourth wall with me for a second. Look right at the screen and honestly ask yourself, when is it truly enough for you? At what specific, tangible point do you stop moving the goalposts further back? It's a surprisingly difficult question to answer, isn't it?
And it's difficult because human psychology actively works against us here. When your profits or your income go up, your expectations inevitably rise right alongside them. You start looking at your neighbor, your boss, people flexing on the internet, and this social comparison fuels a game that is mathematically impossible to win. There is literally always someone with more. So the most vital rule from our text is this: never risk what you need and already have just to get what you don't need. Risking your family's basic security just to show off or chase a bigger number, that almost always leads to total loss. Just think back to Richard, our brilliant Harvard executive who lost absolutely everything because he just couldn't stop reaching for more.
The ultimate secret to actually preserving your wealth, the exact secret that Ronald the street sweeper mastered to build his $8 million, is simply this: contentment. We so often view contentment as settling, but in finance, it is a massive strategic advantage. It is the power of knowing your limit and actively choosing to step off that endless treadmill of accumulation.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with this final, provocative thought. Are you playing a financial game you can actually win, or are you risking what you need for things you simply don't? Remember, the greatest financial skill you can ever develop isn't learning how to calculate complex formulas. It is simply learning how to master your own mind. Thanks so much for focusing in with me today, and I'll catch you on the next explainer.